Cool.
All right, here we go. Really excited to get this thing going. I think it automatically started at 5:30, which is terrific, right on time.
Love it. Welcome.
Guys, this whole summit has been so much fun, and your participation and excitement. And we already are seeing success stories in the Facebook group. It's just terrific. I love it.
Yeah, it's way quicker. I mean, it was actually really cool to see how excited most people were to start to make changes to their diet. And if you aren't in the Facebook group, then we highly recommend joining. But if you are in the Facebook group, then you already see people are taking photos, they're commenting on other people's things, they're pointing out, oh, listen to this person's lecture, they're answering questions. It's everything I've dreamed of.
Absolutely, yes. If you have not joined the Facebook group, please do. Tara, if you could throw in a link to the Facebook group, that would be amazing. Just so you guys know, we have Tara here with us. She's going to be studying at Loma Linda, future registered dietitian. We have Kylie Buckner in the chat room. She's a registered nurse working in San Francisco with Kaiser Permanente. So they'll be helping out. And so we're going to make sure to we're going to try and get everybody's questions answered. That's our goal. Last call, there was a little overwhelming. So hopefully we can get to everybody today.
Okay, so let's start out here. We have been getting bombarded with emails from a lot of you guys who are asking about coaching options. You want to know about the coaching that we provide, and you also want to know about the retreats that we provide. So hopefully, if you're in the room and you're interested in learning about that, just type the word yes into the chat box. We kind of want to just give a little bit of an intro here into what it is that we do and how we actually help people make changes to their diet and their lifestyle and actually have it stick. Because, one thing that you'll hear over and over and over again is that, there's a big difference between short-term and long-term changes, right? I can give you any diet, right? I can tell you to just drink Kool-Aid for the next 3 months, and your A1C will improve and your blood glucose control will improve, and you're probably going to lose some weight, right? Does that mean that drinking just Kool-Aid by itself is a good long-term approach? No, it doesn't, right? So what we do in our coaching programs is we teach people how to make transitions to how to become a plant-based eater, and how to do it in a way where you're getting a lot of things solved at one time. Your blood glucose control gets better immediately. And when I say immediately, I am not joking. I don't mean, this is going to happen in the next 2 minutes. I mean, it'll happen within 24 to 48 hours, and it'll start getting better and better and better and better over time. We have people that come into our coaching program with A1Cs up in the 10s. Their blood glucose control's all over the place, and then they start to adopt our principles, and it starts to improve within days. So we teach you exactly what foods to eat. We teach you exactly which foods to minimize. We teach you how to move your body. We teach you how to reconstruct every single meal such that you get incredible benefits. You start to gain your energy, and you start to lose weight. So we teach people how to make these transitions, and then we also provide you with ongoing support. So really what we're talking about here is we provide you with 3 tools. The first tool is an online course. Now, Robbie and I have spent countless hours, thousands of hours, filming videos and putting together a sequence of information that says, first do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. And we walk you through the process of lifestyle change. Because as you probably know, you've gone through these lectures and you've learned a lot from so many of our speakers. Dean Ornish says this, Dr. Neil Barnard says this, Dr. Hans Diels told me this, Brenda Davis told me this. And for many of you, I think that it's kind of confusing and overwhelming because you're like, well, that's a lot of change, like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do, right? So what we've done is we've distilled this whole process down as something that's much, much more straightforward. So we give you this, it's almost like a blueprint, right? And you just say, okay, I'm going to make this change now, and then I'm going to make this change now, and then I'm going to make this change now. And you do it at a reasonable pace, okay? You're not trying to make all these changes at once. You're trying to do it sequentially so that you actually improve your health in a short period of time and you stick with it, okay? So that's number 1 is the online course. Number 2 is a private Facebook group, which is different than the summit group that you guys are in. So the Facebook group that a lot of you guys are in is called the Mastering Diabetes Support Group. And that now has almost 2,000 people in it, which is great. We have a separate private Facebook group that's only for people that are in our actual coaching programs. And that Facebook group is very active, and there's people that are currently going through the process and people who have already gone through the process, and those people are getting dramatic results. So in that Facebook group, you get to learn from others, you get to contribute, share your experience, and then you also get to learn how other people are making it work in the real world. Okay. The third tool we give you is every month we get on a group video conference call similar to this, but even better. So we use a different tool. It's called Zoom. And on that tool, it's like Hollywood Squares, where you see individual squares with all the people that are in the call. So let's say there's 15 people in the call, right? Everybody can see each other and interact with each other. And we basically walk you through, it's a question and answer session. So you can tell us what's been working, what hasn't been working, and you get direct one-on-one FaceTime with us. We love it because we love to learn from you guys, and we love to see how we can help keep you on track and solve these really difficult, challenging situations that arise. So again, online course, number one, private Facebook group, number two, monthly group video conferences. And the three of those are designed to make sure that the changes that you make stick, and that these changes stick for a long period of time. There's nothing that Robbie and I like more than being able to pick up the phone a year from now or 2 years from now and say, hey, how's it going, Jane? How's it going, Wendy? How's it going, Christy? What are you eating right now? And for your response to be, oh, well, I'm eating the same foods that you guys, that I learned how to eat while I was in your program. And here's why I'm doing it. Because it works. Because I enjoy it. Because it's fun. Because I feel like $1,000,000. That's what we want to hear. So our coaching program is designed to achieve that, and it works with every single person that actually applies it. It works beautifully. So that's how the coaching program works. Now it's designed to go over the course of 10 months. Why 10 months? Well, because we want to be with you every step of the way. We're not just going to say, here, do this, see you later, gotta go, right? We're here with you for a long period of time so that you can make this change stick and it becomes sustainable in the long term. And so we've worked long and hard to design this curriculum and make sure it actually works. And if that's something that you guys find interesting, in the chat box, why don't you tell us, is that something that you think that you will actually benefit from? So we've had so many people come through our program and get tremendous results. And it's this sort of ongoing support that most people are in need of.
Yeah, so like Sarah said, there's just nothing makes us happier. There's nothing we're more committed to than your long-term success. And that's the program that we've built. And that's something we're really proud of. And we're dedicated to making sure everybody who commits themselves to us, you give us 100%, we're going to give you 110%. That's just the way it works.
Absolutely. Sorry, technical difficulties here.
So, and let's see some questions coming in here.
Okay. So, all right. Looks like a whole bunch of people say, yes, I would love it. Just can't afford. Sounds really good. How much does it cost? Yes, I would love the support. I need fine tuning. Been doing this for a year. Love you guys. Yes, interesting program. Okay, cool. So this is great. Okay. So you guys are saying, how much is this program? How much is this program? We've worked long and hard to make sure that we can give you a program that actually is totally affordable. So the way the program works is it costs $99 a month for a total of 10 months. So it's broken up into small payments, $99 a month for a total of 10 months. So the whole program comes out to be $990, but it's broken up so that you don't have to pay it all at once. So we would love for as many of you guys to join that program as possible. We work so hard to make sure that you get incredible results. We really do. So there's going to be a link put into the chat box. Either Kylie or Tara can put that link in. And if you just click on that link, it's called Bronze Level Coaching. So you just click on the Bronze Level link and it'll take you to a page where you can read all about it, and then you can enter your credit card information and just submit. So if this is something that's good for you, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody, but if it is something that you really want, we guarantee that your success. We guarantee it. And we've actually never had a student or a client fail ever, because we don't allow it. We do not allow that to happen. So we tell people, you give us 100%, we give you 200%. And we're here for you to make sure that it works every single time.
As long as you put in 100% effort, if you do the program, like everybody's a little different. Some people, there's some type 1s, it's a little struggle where, they're not getting the exact ratios nailed down, or they're having the challenges. But if you stick with it, if you plug away at it, it will work, and it happens. So some people a little longer, some quicker, but we've never seen a person who, okay, you're willing to show us pictures of all your meals, you're willing to talk to us and be with us every step of the way, that has not seen a dramatic improvement and been happy with the results. So we're there for you 110%, as long as you give us 100%. That's the way it works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Trisha puts a question, says, are you going to be too busy for this, since a lot of us want this coaching program? The answer is no, not at all. Not at all. This is Robbie and I's full-time job. We are here to make sure that we can run this program, we can administer it, and if ever we feel like we're overloaded, then we have backup support to make sure that we can take care of all of you guys. Okay, so we would love nothing more than to have more new people come into the coaching program. And if you're looking for positive change, this is a guaranteed success. There's literally no risk involved at all. Yeah,
and just to be clear, we've worked with so many people. We've laid out this program in such detail that the information is so clear that it's very easy to follow, and it's actually it's a smooth process for everybody involved.
Absolutely. Okay. So then the second thing, I want to get into more content here, but the second question we've kept on getting is, what about your retreats? So we have a retreat coming up in the beginning of March. It's from the 2nd to the 6th of March. And the way that it works is that it's in Idlewild, California, which is in Southern California. And it's up in the mountains. It's a great, beautiful location. The way it works is that people come for that 4-day period. And what we do is it's like all inclusive. So in that retreat, we will feed you 3 times a day or more. You'll be fed very well. We give you multiple exercise sessions per day, 2 exercise sessions per day. We give you 3 interactive lectures per day, where you're going to learn about things like insulin resistance and emotional eating, and how to exercise while managing your blood glucose, how to lose weight, what's the problem with protein, what's the problem with carbohydrate. So we go into detail about all of those questions. We give you this binder that you get to have, and you get to scribble all over it, and you keep it for yourself. You take it home, and you can use that for continued support. So the binder looks something like this, and it's just got all types of information in here, which you can write things down, and you keep this with you, and this becomes your Bible. Okay. So it's a 4-day long retreat. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then a little bit of Thursday, a little bit of Monday. And it's such a fun place because it's always just high fives going all over the place. We're having a great time, and we feed you, honestly, the best part is the food. There's no question. We do a really good job of making sure that we're getting the highest quality produce whenever, and organic whenever possible. And we have a team of 8 people in the kitchen. Plus, we also have a doctor who flies up from Louisiana. His name's Dr. Gibson. And he's there to make sure that he can give you all of the sort of information about how to adjust your medication, whether it's oral medication or insulin, so that you don't put yourself in a dangerous position. So it's a fun time. It's great. And if you guys are interested in doing that, there's a link in the chat window that you can click on. It'll take you to the retreat page, and you can learn more about it that way as well.
It's really a party. It's fun. It's educational. I personally buy all the produce. I spend several days scouting out everything, making sure we got the best stuff, and it's ripe, it's delicious. And we've never had somebody come to our retreat where we feed them the food and they did not see an improvement in the insulin sensitivity. That is yet to happen. So type 1s end up taking less insulin. Many type 2s lower their oral medication. If on insulin, they lower that too, and see better readings every single time. So it's really fun. People really come, they gain confidence in the lifestyle and how to do it when they get home. We practice ordering at restaurants. We talk about how to get your kitchen ready. So it's an event to not only just enjoy the process while you're there, but also to set you up for success when you get home. You have a new friend, you have your new friends, you have a community, stay in touch with each other. So that's what it's all about. Again, long-term success. This whole program, everything you heard about in the summit, we are not about short-term fixes, not about just the numbers. We're talking about overall long-term health, the bigger picture, and just happens to be that the numbers improve as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So there's a little feedback on your side, I think, Robin.
Okay.
Audio. Okay. So now let's get to the sort of meat that, what we're trying to understand now is what is your take-home message from this retreat? I'm sorry, from this summit, right? There's a lot of information which has been presented. It can be a little overwhelming because every practitioner or every expert has a slightly different way of doing it. I'm sure you guys have noticed that, right? Some people say it's okay to eat a lot of fruit. Some people say don't eat a lot of fruit, eat a lot of starch, right? Some people say eat a whole bunch of beans, right? So really what we wanted to whittle it down is to make it much simpler in your head so that you don't get off of this live session or walk away from the summit being like, yeah, there's a lot of information, but now I'm confused, okay? So if we had to basically, you hear this term over and over again, low-fat, plant-based whole foods, low-fat, plant-based whole foods. I told you guys to write it down on a piece of paper at the beginning of the summit. Hopefully you still have that piece of paper and it's stuck to your fridge wall or your fridge door and you're looking at it every single day, okay? Low-fat, plant-based whole foods. I can't say those words enough, okay? So when we're talking about low-fat, we're talking about foods that are high in their carbohydrate content and low in both their fat and protein content. So these types of foods are things like fruits, non-starchy vegetables like cucumbers and tomatoes and okra and give me some other ones here.
Zucchini,
thank you. Eggplant, okay? Those types of non-starchy vegetables. We're also talking about starchy vegetables as well. Starchy, whenever you hear the word starch or starchy vegetable, what we're talking about are things that grow in the ground, okay? All versions of potatoes, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, purple potatoes, yams, they're all fantastic, okay? You've probably been told over and over again that white potatoes will make you fat, okay? There's no evidence to show that. Potatoes do not make you fat. It's the stuff you put on top of the potato, the cheese, the butter, the cream, the bacon. That's the stuff that actually contributes to making you more overweight over time. The potato is not to blame. It never has been and it never will be, okay? So starchy vegetables, again, are things that grow in the ground. So we're talking all potatoes, all versions of squash. Squash is an incredible vegetable, root vegetable, because you have so many varieties. You got butternut squash, you got acorn squash, you got spaghetti squash, you got zucchini squash, you got kabocha squash, which is a green pumpkin-looking thing that comes from Japan. Okay, those are just 5 simple varieties that are commonly found. Okay, now we're talking. So we got potatoes, we got squash, we got corn. Corn is technically a grain, but it acts like a starch. So we're going to put it into the starch category. Okay, that means yellow corn, white corn, purple corn, bicolor corn. Corn is a green light, okay? Now we're also talking about other things that grow in the ground like turnips and parsnips and beetroot and radishes and rutabaga. Okay, if you guys have never had these types of foods before, they're fantastic. Carrots are going to fall into that category as well, okay? All of these foods grow in the ground, and as a result of growing in the ground, they have a very starchy consistency to them, and they're all going to behave very similarly, and they're going to improve your blood glucose control. So potatoes are great, squash is great, corn is great. All the starchy root vegetables that we just mentioned are also great. On top of that, you can have things like quinoa, brown rice. Okay, those are starches, they're whole grains, and they have a starchy consistency to them, and they're actually processed in the same way that starchy root vegetables are processed as well. So that covers the starch category. Okay, we have fruits, we have non-starchy vegetables, and we have starchy vegetables we just talked about. And then we have the best category of all, legumes, 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 okay? A legume, write this down, is a bean, a lentil, or a pea. Any version of bean, any version of lentil, any version of pea. These foods are so healthy for you, are so packed with vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. It is hard to quantify. There have been study after study after study who have shown that eating beans and lentils and peas has such a positive benefit on your blood glucose. It's almost overwhelming, okay? Dr. Furman talked about the second meal effect, which means that if you have beans at this meal, your blood glucose control becomes better because the beans are so high in fiber and they're protective against a high blood glucose. So you'll get a really nice stable blood glucose curve at a meal when you eat beans. The second meal effect means that 3 hours later, 5 hours later, when you eat your next meal, the beans from the previous meal are still benefiting you. So the second meal, you get a benefit. So if you're having beans on a somewhat frequent basis, let's say once per day, then you're basically always in that second meal state where you're continually getting the benefit from beans. Okay, lentils act in the exact same way. Okay, so he talked about the second meal effect. Dan Buettner talked about the fact that across all the blue zones, okay, the single food that is common to every single blue zone is the bean. Okay, 80 to 90% of the diet in all blue zones is a plant-based diet. And the single plant food that is common to every single one of these places is the bean. Okay, it's not a coincidence at all. Okay, beans are longevity promoting. Beans are cardioprotective. Beans are anti-diabetic. Beans contain a lot of fiber. Beans are very slow in their digestion, and beans are potently anti-carcinogenic at the same time. So for all those reasons, having beans or lentils or peas as part of your daily food intake is very, very, very important. Okay. Now, when it comes to fruits, there's a lot of confusion, right? People like Robbie and I mean, look at Robbie's shelf behind you. See, Robbie's got bananas and mangoes and papayas and oranges all over the place, okay? Robbie eats a lot of fruit. Guess what? I eat a lot of fruit as well, okay? Now, in the world of diabetes, fruit is almost condemned. They say, don't eat fruit, don't eat potatoes, okay? And we're here to tell you that that's actually not true. So you've heard it from a lot of the speakers already, but fruit is one food group which I think is underemphasized, okay? Now, the first thing that people think when they hear the word fruit is sugar, okay? If I tell you to eat fruit, a lot of people say, well, doesn't it have a lot of sugar? Isn't sugar bad for me? Isn't sugar bad for me? Okay? We got to make a distinction because there's refined sugar and then there's natural sugar, okay? The two of them are totally fundamentally different species. We can't even really use the same word to describe them, but that's just the way it's talked about, okay? So refined sugar is the high fructose corn syrup, the white table sugar, the sorbitol, the dextrose, the mannitol, all of these, products of manufacturing processes. Those are refined sugars, and those things have no business being in our diet. But when you're talking about the natural sugars, those natural sugars come from fruits like bananas, like oranges, like papayas, like stone fruit, peaches, pears, plums, kiwis, melons, right? All of these fruits contain natural sugar. That this is not the type of sugar that's going to rot your teeth. This is not the type of sugar that's going to make you fat. This is not the type of sugar that's going to cause your blood glucose to go crazy, okay? Instead, it's a protective form of sugar that comes prepackaged with vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and fiber and water, okay? The one defining ingredient that separates natural sugar from refined sugar is fiber. That's it right there. So always ask yourself, if I'm going to eat something that even if it has some natural sugar in it, if it contains fiber, the fiber is going to protect against a high blood glucose value. Okay. We regularly have people who come into our coaching program myself and Robbie included, who start to eat a lot of fruit, and all of a sudden you're like, well, that's weird. My blood glucose is going down. Isn't it supposed to go up? It's not going up. It's not going up at all. Why is it not going up, right? And the reason is because the natural sugar is not going to cause your blood glucose to go up. What causes your blood glucose to go up is the fact that there was a lot of fat already on your body, or a lot of fat that's already stored inside of you that's blocking your ability to absorb that sugar, that natural sugar. Okay? So, Robbie, did I miss anything?
Okay. No, I don't think you missed anything. I hope the bottom line is, through our coaching process, okay, when we work with people, we are solely focused on what each individual's goals are. So when you come to us, you want some specific accomplishment, whether it's losing weight, whether it's a specific A1C, whether it's to get off certain oral medications. There's a wide range of goals. And what we do, and there's various ways to get there. You know, there's a McDougall approach. McDougall wants to limit fruit. There's a Furman approach. He has some variations. So there's variations here. We understand all of them. And what we do is we assess somebody's situation, and we can make some minor tweaks here and there based on what somebody's goals are. So overall, it's very simple. You could do any one of these small variations that you found here. Any one of them, you pick one and stick with it. It will work. And if there's any particular goal that doesn't get met, then that's when, as coaches, we work with somebody. We make necessary tweaks to get to whatever that goal is. There's so many nuances when working with each individual's health, but overall, they all work. And, you know, as you can see, I think somebody was asking, you know, why do we eat lots of fruit? I mean, I'll just answer for me personally. I just love fruit. I enjoy it. It tastes amazing. That's what I like to eat at every meal. It's accessible for me. It's and I just know it's a healthy food. There's just no evidence anywhere to say anything bad about the consumption of whole fruits. You can find some studies that say fructose is bad, but that is always in an isolated form. I've never seen a study where whole fruit does anything but great things. I mean, Dr. Greger has a video saying one of the risk factors, basically figuring out how long you live is based on how much fruit you eat. I was actually at a meeting today with Dan Buettner of the Blue Zones, and he was saying how there's a study that said people that eat more than 6 servings of fruit a day are, you know, like 20% happier or something like that. I have to look into the study. We'll do a video on it. But fruit is just overall a really beautiful food when it's eaten properly in its whole form. And you can also, you know, mix vegetables with it. So we're big in our greens and vegetables on our program. And hopefully at this point, it's very clear what foods are good. And again, just stick with any one of these various variations and you will succeed. The problems occur when you start eating too much processed stuff, when you have cheat days, when you add in some garbage, you know. Nobody has ever, not that I know of, nobody's ever developed type 2 diabetes or type 1 because they were eating a ton of fruit. It just doesn't happen. Nobody would develop disease because they were eating a ton of starch. Like if you ever met that person, oh man, like they come to you, I just got diagnosed with diabetes, and you look at them thinking, oh man, all I ever see you eat is fruits and starches. It just doesn't happen. So you got to get rid of the garbage and keep it clean.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's this question that's been asked in the chat box about does fruit cause candida, right? Does eating a high quantity of fruit actually cause candida albicans? So the answer is no. Okay, candida is not necessarily caused by the consumption of fruit. Candida is actually reversed by eating fruit. Okay, what ends up happening, the reason why you create candida in the first place is because you actually are consuming too much refined sugar. Okay, it's not the natural sugar that's going to cause it, it's the refined sugar. So eating packaged and processed foods, eating refined carbohydrates, these are the types of foods that actually promote the overgrowth of candida. And as a result of that, that can start to completely disrupt your digestive processes, leading to bloating and intestinal discomfort. And if you can completely eliminate refined and processed sugar and switch for a natural version of sugar coming from fruit, your candida will actually go away, which is actually really cool. Okay. There's another question here. There's actually a lot of questions here about how much fat to eat on a daily basis, right? Is there some metric that we can use to actually understand how much fat is okay versus how much fat is not okay? Okay. So the way to look at this is you can look at it in a number of different ways, right? Take your total calorie intake and multiply that times 10% or multiply it times 0.1. And that right there gives you a pretty good ballpark, right? So let's do my calculation just because I know the number, okay? I'm eating 3,500 calories per day. So 3,500, and then I'm gonna multiply that times 0.1, right? That gives me 350 calories coming from fat. So 350 calories coming from fat. And then what I have to do is divide that number by 9 because there's 9 calories per gram, sorry. So I'll take 350 divided by 9 and I'll get a number that's somewhere around 30. It's gonna be like 40, we'll call it, okay? So that right there is a simple way to calculate your upper limit for the total fat intake. What Robbie and I have noticed is that that number is actually a little too large. What we have found over the course of time is that there's some magical sort of threshold that appears somewhere around the 30 gram mark, okay? Some people, it's actually a little bit lower, somewhere around the 20 gram mark, okay? So what we recommend is stage 1, wherever your fat intake is right now, download an app to measure that. We recommend using an app called Chronometer. Actually, no, I'm sorry. We recommend using an app called Neutrino, which you guys have seen in the summit. It was a talk given by Yaron, the chief technical officer, the chief science officer of Neutrino. Incredible smartphone app. It's only on an iPhone, but if you do have an iPhone, you can use it and it'll track all the foods that you're eating and it'll tell you exactly how many grams of fat you're eating per day. So use that app and figure out what your current number is. Let's say for the sake of argument, you're at 75. What I want you to do is stage 1, go from 75 to 30, do it fast, okay? Make the change fast by opting for carbohydrate-rich foods and lower your fat intake completely from all animal products, eliminate oil, and watch what happens, okay? You go from 75 to 30, you get a noticeable increase in your insulin sensitivity within 24 hours. From that point, if you drop your fat intake from 30 down to about 20 per day, you're gonna get an improved response. You're gonna get an improved insulin sensitivity. So what we recommend is using one of these two calculations, but keeping it within that range. And if you can do that on a daily basis, then you will get the maximum benefit, right? But that right there doesn't just solve the problem altogether because that's going to give you a huge boost in your insulin sensitivity. But then the real challenge, I guess I'd say the real fun part, and can be somewhat challenging, is figuring out all the logistics surrounding it. Where am I going to go to get my groceries? How much am I going to buy? What are the foods I'm going to make? What are the recipes I'm going to follow? How do I travel with food? How do I take it to work? What do I do at restaurants? Like all these things come up, right? That's the hard part. Okay, so that's why working at this over the course of time is something that will benefit you and something that's actually going to lead to a lot of long-term success rather than just saying, okay, great, the only number I'm going to focus on is a 20 and then not worrying about all the other logistical details. Okay. So next question we got is, okay, if you remove or if you reduce your fat intake in the first week or two, okay, now your blood glucose, in the case of type 1 diabetes, your blood glucose is bound to go low. So what we're trying to do is keep your blood glucose within a normal range between 80 and 130 all day long, every day. If you happen to pop out of that a little bit, don't stress over it, okay? Just bring it right back down to the normal range, okay? So you can keep your blood glucose within that 80 to 130 window, okay? And what we're saying is that we can help you keep it within that window by eating a low-fat diet. And the low-fat diet is actually so effective at keeping it within that window that the amount of insulin that you're giving yourself right now becomes too much very quickly. So as an example, suppose you're giving yourself a total of 30 units of insulin per day. Okay, and that's divided between your basal and your bolus, and you total the whole thing up, you get 30 units. What happens is that as soon as you eat a low-fat plant-based whole foods diet, that your requirement goes from 30 to 25 to 22 to 19 to 18 within a very short period of time. So you look at that and you're like, wait a minute. Now I'm going low. I'm going hypoglycemic frequently. And that's one of the things that we address in our coaching programs. We teach you how to make the transition slowly so that you don't go so hypoglycemic that you end up putting yourself in the emergency room. Nobody wants that. You don't want that. We don't want that. Nobody wants that. So you have to be very, very careful about your insulin dosing and back off by between 20 and 50% within the first month. No questions asked. Okay, we see it every single time. And it's something that's very important to understand, because if you continue to give yourself the same amount of insulin that you were giving yourself previously, you're going to go hypoglycemic and it's going to become dangerous very quickly. Okay. So, all right. There's a lot of questions here about insulin pumps. So in the chat window, here's what I want you to do. If you're on an insulin pump, I want you to write the word yes. Okay. Insulin pumps are used mainly in people with type 1 diabetes, very rarely in people with type 2 diabetes. Challenging to understand, how the heck am I going to use this device, right? Pretend this is my pump, right? You have this pump, it's attached to you all day long, and you're supposed to program it to do certain things and to give you insulin at certain times and to not give you insulin at certain times. And then it's got this tubing that connects to you, and you have to manage it and stick it here, and what am I going to do with it? You know, it can get confusing. So we teach you guys how to use your pump to its for its maximum benefit, but then we also show you why in certain situations not being on a pump is actually more effective than being on a pump. So a pump has a lot of advantages, right? The main advantage of being on a pump is that you can adjust it on the fly. So let's say I just went for a run. Suppose I went on a 6-mile run and I came back, and now I'm going to be more insulin sensitive de facto because I just exercised. Okay. If for the next, I needed to give myself less basal insulin, well, here you go. Boom. Type it in, less basal insulin, please. Problem solved. Okay. But if you had already given yourself an injection of basal insulin, you can't undo that rejection. It's not possible, right? That's why the pump is very handy for making sure you can make minute-by-minute changes. So that's its main benefit. Now, one of the things that's actually really challenging on a pump is that you're delivering insulin into the same location for like 3 days in a row, and then you switch locations, and then 3 days, you switch locations, and then 3 days, and switch locations, and then 3 days. Then as a result of that, you end up developing these pockets of insulin resistance. So it's a localized insulin resistance that happens in your abdomen, in your butt, in your lower back, wherever the actual insertion site connects to your body. So by injecting insulin into those locations, you end up developing a condition known as lipoatrophy. And lipoatrophy makes your life really challenging, because over the course of time, you start to recognize, you're like, well, I used to give myself 25 units of insulin, and now I'm giving myself 35 units of insulin, and nothing has changed. I haven't changed my diet. I haven't changed my exercise, nothing. Why is that happening? And part of the reason is literally just the delivery mechanism. Just the fact that you're injecting to the same spots over the course of time. So one of the things that we found with a lot of our clients, myself included, is if you get off of the insulin pump altogether and then you go to injections or you go to a pen, okay? Robbie uses a pen, I use a syringe. If you go for that sort of manual, like archaic approach, it actually simplifies your life significantly, because now you have so much more real estate that you can use to inject insulin. You can do it you can do it intramuscularly, right into muscle. You can do it in your chest. You can do it in your arms. You can do it in your forearms. You can do it in your legs. You can do it in your abdomen. You can do it in your lower back. You can do it in your butt. Okay. There's so much more real estate. And as a result of that, you don't end up with these localized pockets of insulin resistance, and your blood glucose control gets simplified big time. Okay. So there's some questions here. Do you teach how to use a pump at the retreat? Yes. Pump management is actually something that we teach a lot about. In our coaching program, we also cover it in significant detail. We have videos about it. We show you exactly what types of insulins to use and what types of insulins to not use. And if you're on a pump, how to adjust your pump settings so that you don't go hypoglycemic. And if you're on a pump, how to maybe even consider getting off of the pump so that your blood glucose control can be simplified as well. So we cover all of that stuff for sure. Okay. All right, what other questions do we got here?
We have a question. I think somebody said, how to avoid, I saw a question, somebody saying, how do I avoid spikes when I just start eating fruit? I think if you're a type 1 and you're experiencing spikes, there's a few things that could be going on. Number 1 could be insulin timing. So in my experience, and with clients, if you're gonna eat a big fruit meal, you have to make sure the insulin is working and your blood glucose is roughly 120-ish and going down before you start putting a big fruit meal into your body because the fruit's gonna get in the bloodstream very quickly. So that's one thing. Another thing is adding greens or vegetables with that meal can sort of blunt the spike a little bit. Eating a little bit slower and really chewing the food can have a big impact on the curve. And especially, not doing smoothies. If you're having problems with the curve and you want to see it more like a rolling hill, then smoothies are not going to be your friend. I mean, you could do a smoothie, but if you ate it with a spoon and ate it very slowly, but it's better to just eat the whole fruit and chew it. So hopefully that answers that question. Cyrus, somebody wants us to repeat the fat calculation. So.
Oh yeah, fat calculation. Okay. All right, so there's 2 ways to think about it. Instead of doing the calculation is confusing and it's actually not that accurate. There's 2 numbers I want you to remember, 30 and 20. 30 grams per day to begin with, and then 20 grams per day as your next step, okay? That's what I'd recommend. Most people are eating way more than 30 grams of fat per day, especially if you come from a low carbohydrate or ketogenic background. Chances are your fat intake is 75 to 125 grams of fat per day. So what I'm asking you to do is take it from whatever it's at and dropping it to 30 right off the bat. Just do that and don't think twice about it. Once you're at that 30 mark, stay there for about a week or maybe 2 weeks. And then as you see your blood glucose control improve and your insulin usage drop, from that point, drop your fat intake to about 20 grams per day. And then when you're at the 20 gram marker, hold it constant there for another 2 weeks. And see, you'll get an even enhanced insulin sensitivity effect. And if you can do that, then if you can maintain that every day for a long period of time, you will be in such a better place. No question.
Yeah, so I'm gonna throw in a third number there. So just to be clear, because we have a lot of YouTube videos coming out soon about this information, but our diet is a maximum of 15% of calories from fat. So if you use the Neutrino app and you get your caloric nutrient ratio, 15% is the max. And you see a lot of people out there trying to compare a low fat diet to a high fat diet, and they really didn't try a low fat diet like we're talking about here. So more closer to 10% is more what we're looking for, but a maximum of 15, that's where we're at.
Exactly right. Now let's go back to this pump discussion, because there are a lot of people who asked about, in McDougall's talk, Dr. John McDougall, he talked about the fact that he doesn't like pumps. He's not a fan of pumps. And the reason, so there were some people who were sort of like outraged, like, well, what are you talking about? A pump is a really good tool and it's a really effective device for helping me manage my glucose. The reason why Dr. McDougall was saying that he doesn't like pumps is because what he has seen and what a lot of peer-reviewed scientific evidence shows excuse me, is that people who are on pumps oftentimes try to control their glucose to too high of a level of precision. Okay? Let's go backwards here. Dr. Mark Hellerstein talked about the fact that our beta cells are so smart that no matter how smart you are, you'll never be as smart as your beta cell. And that's a true statement, because your beta cells are so good at controlling your blood glucose that there's no computer program that we can write, there's no robot that we can invent that will do as good of a job controlling blood glucose as your beta cells would do if they were fully functional. What that means is that your pump can also not control your blood glucose nearly as well as your beta cells would. So it's human nature to try and use your pump to try and dial things in so good that your blood glucose is flat all the time, right? But it's exhausting and it rarely works. And what he's found is that people who try so hard to keep their glucose in such tight control end up putting themselves in very dangerous situations. And they end up over-injecting insulin, going hypoglycemic, and then ending up in the emergency room. So what he's saying is that I would rather you walk around with a blood glucose that's high rather than you try and control your blood glucose so tightly that you go low, because going low is life-threatening and riding a little bit high has much less of a long-term metabolic consequence, okay? Now, he also says that about CGMs, continuous glucose monitors, okay? He says, I don't need that information. It's too much. It's just too much. What I want you to do is follow the principles of low-fat, plant-based, whole foods eating. And if you do that, your blood glucose will naturally become much more manageable. And that way you're not even going to need a CGM to tell you what to do at all times. And you can go and live your life the way that you want to live your life. That's what he's
I'll add a little bit to the CGM conversation. So the CGM can be a beneficial tool. It's a problem when it becomes a crutch and completely relied upon. So there are some situations where it's, especially for children. And I personally use a Dexcom quite frequently. I don't have it in all the time, but I use it quite frequently. And it can be used properly, especially, if you turn the alarms off and just sort of use it as a tool to sort of see the trend and sort of see what's going on. It can be okay. So we don't have a position of being against CGMs. That is a personal choice, and we certainly want to let people know that if it's not financially an option, one should not feel bad about that. We all lived just fine without it for many years when it didn't exist. So it's totally cool to live without it as well.
Yep. Okay. Here's another question. What is the best time to check your blood glucose? Okay, let me back up here. People use the term blood sugar. They say, when's the best time to check my sugars? When's the best time to check my blood sugar? If I could change your vocabulary, I would really appreciate it. From here on out, I'm a stickler for using the right words, okay? We're not talking about blood sugar. We're talking about blood glucose. It's a very important distinction because the term sugar is a misnomer. It's used too frequently and it's too confusing, okay? What you're actually measuring when you use your glucometer is a blood glucose value. You're measuring the total amount of glucose in your bloodstream. So from now on, if I see the word blood sugar, I'm going to get angry, okay? So the question is, what's the best time of the day to check your blood glucose? Okay, is it 30 minutes after a meal? Is it 1 hour after a meal? Is it 2 hours after a meal? Okay. The answer to that is the best way to check your blood glucose is to bracket a meal. Okay. So the most important blood glucose check of the day is your fasting blood glucose. First thing in the morning, when you wake up, don't eat any food. You can have maybe a sip of water if you want, whatever. Wake up in the morning, check your blood glucose. That is the most important blood glucose measurement of the day, because what it's telling you is it's telling you a lot of information. It's telling you, you think of it as your sort of like baseline insulin resistance number. Your goal is to have that between 80 and 130 every single day of your life. If you're waking up and your blood glucose first thing in the morning is at 175, what it means is that you have insulin resistance somewhere in your body. It's in your muscles, it's in your liver, okay? That's what it could mean, number one. Number two, if you're living with type 1 diabetes, what that means is that the amount of basal insulin that you give yourself is too low. You might want to increase your basal insulin just slightly so that you can bring your blood glucose down to the normal range. Now, I am not a physician. Robbie is not a physician. By law, we cannot tell you how to change your insulin dosing strategy. So I'm not recommending that you make these changes. I'm saying if I were in your place, I would look at my basal insulin in order to understand if that needs to be adjusted so that I can wake up in the normal range. Third reason why it's so important is because if you want a good A1C value, right? An A1C is a metric of 3-month-long blood glucose control. Okay, you're looking for a value that's between 5.5 and 6.5 at the highest. Okay, you want to stay in that window, 5.5 to 6.5. Now, if you wake up with a blood glucose that's elevated, what it means is that chances are your blood glucose is elevated throughout the middle of the night. And that's not a good thing, because that's going to affect your A1C value. When you go get your A1C measured, it's going to be high, and you're going to say, well, how come it's high? And I'm going to say it's probably high because for the 8 hours that you were sleeping every single day, your glucose was elevated. So you're doing a good job of measuring and controlling your glucose during the waking hours, but while you're asleep, you got elevated glucose, your A1C is going to go out the window, okay? So first thing in the morning, if your glucose is in range, that's very important because it means that your nighttime glucose was much more stable and lower, and then also because it gives you a baseline metric of your insulin resistance. So beyond that, if you go and eat a meal now, here's what I want you to do. Test your glucose before the meal. Test your glucose 2 hours after you finish the meal. So this is what I mean. I'll test my glucose at 12 o'clock p.m. and then I will eat a meal, and it'll take me from 12:15 to 12:45 to finish my meal. So I want you to go 2 hours from the time you're done with your meal. So that 12:45 becomes 2:45. At that point, I want you to check your glucose. Okay, if you check your glucose 2 hours after you're done eating, then what that means is that you will get a good idea of whether your glucose is behaving. You'll also get a good idea of if you're injecting insulin, in the case of type 1 diabetes, whether or not the amount of insulin you gave yourself at that meal was sufficient. Okay? One last thing I'll leave you with here is that insulin resistance, you can define it in a 1,000 different ways. We talked about the fact that insulin resistance is exacerbated by the storage of fat in tissues that are not designed to store fat. Another way to think about insulin resistance is that insulin resistance refers to the amount of time that it takes insulin to act. It's just a time thing. So imagine, thought experiment. If I gave myself insulin right now, and then I didn't do anything, okay? If 2 hours later, my glucose was the exact same as it is now, that means that the insulin I gave myself didn't do anything. That means that I'm insulin resistant, okay? If instead I give myself insulin right now, and 2 hours later my glucose is significantly lower, that means that insulin is acting, and it's acting quickly. That means that I am moving towards insulin sensitivity, okay? So a simple way to think about insulin resistance versus insulin sensitivity is how long does it take for insulin to act, okay? If it's very responsive in your body, that's a good thing. That means you can reduce the total amount of insulin you use, and that means that your body is responding to it as soon as it sees it. If instead you inject insulin, and then 4 hours later you check your glucose and it hasn't really done anything, then you have a problem. Okay? So we got another question here. Just scanning through these questions right here.
Okay, somebody asked about eating every 2 hours. That's option. It's obviously harder to do if you're living with type 1 and trying to manage your blood glucose readings. If you're having adrenal fatigue issues, it's definitely something to consider, but it's certainly not required. Let's see, beverages. The best beverages, I mean, there's nothing better than like water with some lemon squeeze in there, some lime squeeze in there. That's going to be the best drink. Coffee, we do not recommend coffee. I mean, caffeine is a stimulant, so it's not really recommended. You could do decaffeinated, but still, it's just better to drink water. So keep it simple. You could do green juices. Green juices are fine. We definitely do not recommend fruit juice. Only exception there would be something like orange juice with the pulp. Fresh squeezed orange juice is not so bad. So that should hopefully answer that. We're coming up on our 1 hour marker, so we're going to try and get through as many of these as we can. Let's see.
Okay. Here's a question. Can having Hashimoto's, low cortisol, and low vitamin D cause elevated blood glucose ongoing? Just got these test results. Okay, Pat, thank you for writing this question in. Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is low thyroid, excuse me, low thyroid output or hypothyroidism. That is an autoimmune condition. People who have one autoimmune condition oftentimes are now showing multiple autoimmune conditions. I'm a perfect example of that. I have 3 autoimmune conditions. I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis right here. I have type 1 diabetes, and I have alopecia areata, which is why I have no hair. Okay, 3 autoimmune conditions. So having one raises your likelihood for having another one. If you are living with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, it is imperative that you get your thyroid hormone adjusted by taking a supplement, a thyroid hormone supplement. A lot of people try and not take the supplement because they say, I don't want to take any pills. They say, oh, I don't want to take any pills, and therefore I'm not going to use that supplement, right? And then they end up with a very low thyroid hormone output. Very dangerous. Here's why. Low thyroid, it's like turning the thermostat way down in your body. Everything goes down. Your energy levels go down. Your metabolic rate goes down. Your energy production goes down. You're going to become more tired, okay? You're going to put on weight. That's going to affect your level of insulin resistance. You're going to end up needing more insulin. You're going to end up needing more medication, okay? A simple fix is to just take one simple thyroid hormone that your doctor can help you figure out the proper dosage of. As soon as you take that and your thyroid hormone is level and is normal, then we're in a completely different situation. At that point, everything reverses. Now you have more energy. Your metabolic rate goes up. You'll start to burn energy. You'll start to become more insulin sensitive. So the question is, does having Hashimoto's affect blood glucose? 1,000,000%, absolutely. You walk around with a low thyroid hormone, your glucose control is out the door. It's out the door. Cortisol and adrenaline are 2 other hormones that are secreted by your adrenal gland. Those 2 hormones are so powerful, they're like trump cards. Doesn't matter what you're doing for your diet. It doesn't matter how good your exercise regimen is. If you're secreting a ton of cortisol and you're secreting a ton of adrenaline, your blood glucose is going to skyrocket. Okay, so you see this in athletes that are doing like very challenging things. You also see this in people who are suffering from adrenal fatigue. They're constantly drip feeding a whole bunch of cortisol in their bloodstream, and their blood glucose goes up and it stays up. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, low vitamin D. Absolutely. Low vitamin D status affects every single tissue in your body. It affects the way you digest your food. It affects your bone tissue. It affects your glucose control. So if you have low vitamin D, absolutely get that corrected. A simple way to do this is to take a small dosage of vitamin D on a daily basis. Rather than taking one whopping dose every 7 days, Dr. Michael Greger has on his website, nutritionfacts.org, he shows you the proper way to think about vitamin D dosing. So I highly recommend watching that video. Go to nutritionfacts.org, type in vitamin D in the search bar, and you'll come up with a whole bunch of different videos. Watch those videos, and he'll show you exactly why taking too much vitamin D is an issue. Taking not enough is an issue, but there's a sweet spot. If you can find your sweet spot, then your glucose control will be improved significantly.
All right, somebody asked, I'm overweight, so will I have blood glucose problems as long as I'm overweight? The answer to that is no. The insiders can talk about a study where people didn't lose any weight and still improve their diabetes health. But of course, losing weight is still going to help your overall health.
Absolutely. So the question is, if I don't lose weight, will I not improve? Is that right?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. You guys have probably heard about Walter Kempner. He came up with the rice fruit diet. We talked about him in
McDougall's talk.
We talked about him in McDougall's talk for sure. Walter Kempner was in 1930s at the University of Duke, and he basically invented a rice fruit diet. And he showed that by eating 2 foods, which people claim to be the worst foods for diabetes, that he could actually reverse type 2 diabetes. So he did it, with rice, with fruit juice, and with added sugar. He literally poured sugar into their food, and they reversed diabetes. The problem with his research, what some people say is, well, Walter, your study subjects lost weight. So because your study subjects lost weight, they're probably reversing diabetes because they lost weight, not because of the diet you fed them. And so finally, multiple years later, it took until the 1970s, James W. Anderson from the University of Montreal came up and he said, all right, here we go. I'm going to invent a study where we take people with type 2 diabetes. These are people who are really sick. We're talking people with type 2 diabetes who are using 30 to 50 units of insulin per day. He says, here's the study. I'm going to put you onto a whole food plant-based diet that's very low in fat. And I'm going to prevent you from losing weight completely. If you lose even a single pound in my study, I'm going to kick you out of my study. So what he did is we took people and he literally force-fed these people. He put so much food into them that they were like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. I'm not going to eat another salad. I'm not going to eat another, I'm not going to eat another serving of plant-based food. There's no way. And these people were convinced that there's no way that they were going to benefit and they were going to reduce their insulin use and overcome type 2 diabetes. Well, guess what happened? Of the people in his study, I think there were 30 people enrolled in his study. He found that even though he force-fed people and prevented them from losing a single pound, he got almost every single person off of insulin altogether. We're talking people who have been living with type 2 diabetes for upwards of 10 to 20 years, who had been using insulin for upwards of 10 to 20 years, using 30 to 50 units of insulin per day, off of their insulin without losing a single pound. And guess how long it took? Write your guesses in the chat box. All right, it's taking too long. The answer is it took less than 14 days. That's how quick it is, okay? So he was the first one to show in a very short period of time that you can actually reverse not only insulin resistance, but you can start the reversal of diabetes by getting people off insulin without a single pound of weight loss. So if anybody tells you that you have to lose weight in order to reverse insulin resistance, the answer is not true. It is not a true statement, okay? Does weight loss help? No question. No question it helps, but it is not required. So
I think we got through majority of the questions. I know Tara and Kylie have been super active in the chat box, so hopefully we addressed all the major questions, I think, for sure. And again, you can always ask comments in our support group. We hope to see you there.
Definitely. I mean, personally, I've had a really, really, really fun time throughout this whole summit. You guys have been just paying attention so much and, giving great comments and really, really focusing on making lifestyle change work. It's been, this is the first time that Robbie and I have put on this summit, and we are going to continue to put on this summit annually. That's our goal. We really want this to work. And we know this time we got 10,000 people registered for this event. There are 10,000 people registered, and our website was getting 20,000 page views per day, which is a lot of page views. So point being is that we've really enjoyed interacting with you guys. We love seeing you guys make changes. We really love seeing all of the positive, increase in energy and increase in blood glucose control that we've seen so far. A couple of calls to action. Number one, if coaching is something that you need, there's no pressure at all. There's no pressure. If you think that coaching is something that you need, you can see this offer. There's a little window with Robbie and my picture. You want to be part of a really close, tight-knit community of people that are getting exceptional results. This is guaranteed to work for you. Now, another thing is that if you think the retreat is something that you need, fantastic. Let's come to the retreat, and you can see that you're going to get a lot of positive effects in a short period of time. It's kind of a kickstart to your new lifestyle. Okay. If you feel like, no, I got this under control. I don't need a retreat. I don't need coaching. I'm just going to do this by myself. Fantastic. Please be our guest. You're more than welcome to do that. There's no pressure to have to sign up for anything else. Okay. What we would ask you to do is be part of the private Facebook group. Okay. The Mastering Diabetes support group, because in that support group, we're monitoring on a daily basis. We're reading all of your comments. We're responding as much as we can. And it's a really great place to be around other people that are constantly going through this process with you. Okay. We love hearing from you guys. We really do. And we want to see as much of you as possible. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your effort. And please, please spread the word. Please spread the word. This stuff needs to get out. There's too much ridiculousness happening out there in the world. You guys know the truth. You've heard it from 30 plus experts. And it's time this information really starts to spread like wildfire.
This has been great, guys. I've loved just, I don't know what else to add. Everything Sarah said, he said it all. It's been fantastic. And, you know, we just want to see this information get out and really, like Sarah said, just people succeeding. So let's do this together. As we all kind of like a little community here. I think everybody here should be in that Facebook group, kind of as a team here. This year one of this summit that's hopefully going to grow, and let's all help each other. Let's meet our goals and be examples and help more people over the coming years. Absolutely. And one last thing I'm going to say is that Robbie and I listened to a lot of the feedback that you guys were giving us. The audio on Brenda Davis's interview was poor. So what we did is we got on we re-interviewed her yesterday. And we did this because the information is so important. She's a wealth of knowledge, and we wanted to make sure that that information was not lost. So if you purchase the All Access Pass, the new interview goes in the All Access Pass. We're posting that new interview after this call, after this webinar. It's going to go for 24 more hours, okay? So we're basically giving you access to her interview for the next day. The All Access Pass will stay at $97 for that day. Please listen to that interview. It's one of my favorite interviews of the entire summit. She is just literally like regurgitating so much information. She's been in this for so long, and she really helps you understand why the paleo methodology is a disaster, and why, from a scientific perspective, the paleo methodology does not work. And what are some of the ways that you can actually think about particular foods to improve your blood glucose control, and what is the evidence supporting those foods? Okay. She talks about grains, whole grains. She talks about beans, like we talked about earlier. Okay. So watch that video, enjoy it, spread the word, and the sky is the limit. All right, guys, we'll see you on Facebook. Have a great rest of your night.
Take care.